Hello and welcome to another artist conversation hosted by Sheba Arts as part of our Celebrating Diversity Festival. I'm joined by Anahita Mohammadkhani. Anahita is an artist in architecture. She has recently finished her Masters in Architecture at the University of Manchester. As part of her thesis, she focused on belonging and becoming, as well as the acknowledgement and appreciation of difference within society. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you've created an immersive digital piece for the festival called The Performance of Subconscious Acts. We're going to be releasing this along with the video so that people at home can explore it in their own time and kind of really get submerged into it. But just to give people a sense of it, we're gonna take a look around. So I'll just quickly share my screen. So I'll just press play.
Welcome to the first act of our series of 3 performances looking at spaces of oppression and resistance under patriarchal systems. Though they might look like it, behind these walls are not just residential apartments. Please feel free to immerse yourself with each of these narratives. The red spaces represent spaces of oppression, the blue spaces represent spaces of resistance.
Yeah, so for example, you can go to scene 3, where it'll go through one narrative, just at the bottom left, yes.
When I went to school, they told me to wear hijab. I was only 7 years old. Once I was nearly thrown out of the school for not wearing it properly. My parents were summoned and had to guarantee that I would conform in the future in every way, even to cut my nails to the correct length. I began to suffer from anxiety. I was terrified I might be expelled. Time passed and I went to university. The staff would criticize me for wearing makeup or if my hair slipped from my scarf. My parents were always pleading with me to obey the rules.
So it's just one of the examples from a narrative within the Woman of Freedom Square that we performed in January. So it's one of the narratives from there, and the others again represent another story, another narrative. So you can actually go back to Revolution Street, where you can go to Act 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for anyone who kind of enters this, all of these scenes have stories with them, so you can kind of explore them at your own pace. And yeah, there's a lot in here. So let's go back to Revolution Street.
That's it. So now you go on Act 2.
Great.
Well, hello. You have arrived just in time for an eagerly anticipated World Cup qualifying match this afternoon. If you're a male spectator, please take the main entrance. If you're a female spectator, you may take the tunnel that will lead you to the roof stands.
So in this case, you can press Take the Tunnel. You can just click on it and go into the scene.
After the signal there for people, I asked myself, why don't you play your consequence? Why not go to the city? But I didn't know. When I passed the tunnel, something went like tears. Then the players came out for more, and once again, I burst out pouring. Everything is safe. not unlawful, but to then contain harm and impose total. Ignoring the issues of being part of society was some problem and saying that infrastructure and trade is loyal and trust.
The narratives are all taken from real interviews that have been done. And again, you can go back to Revolution Street and continue with the scene.
I think this one's my favourite.
Yeah, me too.
Arabia open. Will justice ever be served to women's human rights? South Act highlights systemic tyranny and abuse power structure within the courthouse system. The architecture and infrastructure of the courthouse formed to oppress and dictate. The administration of justice follow.
Yeah, so you can go to any of the trials or scene 3, which is solitary confinement.
Okay, let's go for scene 3.
During interrogation, I got beaten up badly by both faces. Those moments were like the most humiliating moments of my life. Being helpless. I had these shots inside prison, and they didn't tell me what was it, and it was very scary. Behind those doors, there is no justice. Nothing.
Yeah, and you can explore the others as well.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing now and leave people to look at it in their own time now that they can kind of see how it works. Thank you for that, Anahita.
No problem.
So it's really powerful, and it explores themes of oppression. Could you tell me why you wanted to create work about this issue?
Yeah, so when we speak of oppression, there's always resistance. And so this work actually aims at 2 different types of audiences. First is the outsider, the incognizant, the privileged viewer who's not familiar with this oppression. So who's then introduced to these traumatic narratives, taken from real interviews and stories, and then it visualizes them in a theatrical space that allows them to navigate through as they wish, almost making the individual audience part of the performance itself. So it becomes easier for them to understand the effect. The second type of audience is the affected, the insider, the resistance itself. And so if you look at the Maison typology in Act 1, the apartment complex is converted into the secret, forbidden mall. And each narrative is a normal representation of the subconscious act of resistance in Iran's system of oppression. So, for example, the family narrative is the family pressures, everyday pressures that a woman or a girl, a young girl, has to go through. And obviously it all adds up to the cognitive trauma that affects its future and its sort of journey of life. So as I visualize this space, I guess for the second audience, I want to praise and encourage this fight for freedom for the affected. So those are the 2 reasons why I did that.
Amazing, thank you. The work is really interesting, and I know obviously informed by your skills and knowledge about architecture. And it's really interesting in how it looks at physical space and how that affects us and our inner lives and our kind of emotional realities. I think especially for me, I was struck by that in the third one, where those cells are like kind of like, they look like parts of roots under the earth or something, like kind of cellular, like
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, as an architect and artist, if you could talk to us a bit about how these spaces that we inhabit impact us.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that architecture changes lives. I mean, it's a bold statement, but the built environment we literally eat, sleep, and work in every day affects the choices we make, how we feel every day, the air we breathe in, everything. Therefore, as a designer, I think it's vital not only to acknowledge the effect the design has on the diversity of social, economic, and environmental factors, but we need to also look into the deeper into the individual differences and the cognitive trauma that our designs can trigger. Therefore, I think we should design for people as they come rather than the ideal person, you know.
Great, yeah, thank you. Brilliant, and yeah, thank you so much for creating it, and it's such a rich thing to be able to explore, and also so great to have so many elements of Women of Freedom Square kind of preserved in this way and able to revisit it.
Yes, I think that's what what sort of inspired me to create the piece as well, and obviously my own personal experience as an Iranian born and raised here as well. So I almost feel that I had this sort of voice to represent, or at least had the freedom to speak out. So I think it was vital for me to do that.
Yeah, great. I've just become aware that people might not know what Women of Freedom Square was. Do you just want to explain briefly what that project was?
Yeah, so Women of Freedom Square is about, again, very similar. It's sort of narratives from the oppressed system in Iran, especially targeted at women. And it's about these individual women who go to this fashion show and get arrested for their, that they hurt in public chastity or, against the Islamic system. And they each go through their personal stories in the prison, whilst they're in the prison cell and in the court trials. And again, these women working with sort of refugee community and communities from Iran, who speak up about their personal experience and their personal stories. And it just becomes this powerful piece of work because it is a very personal thing for us, and it became very real as a performance. And of course it meant a lot because we're raising awareness as well.
Yeah, it was an incredibly powerful performance. Yeah, it was, and also just very lovely in some like, obviously not the subject matter, but just the environment between all of you guys that were performing was really, really nice.
Yes, definitely made some good friends.
Yeah.
I have to thank Farishta for that, of course.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So looking forward to post-lockdown, and I know you've graduated now, so I guess there's a lot of changes. What are your hopes for a world after COVID?
Well, as much as I would prefer the face-to-face interactions and being in the physical space, I think we can take advantage and incorporate the technologies that have allowed us to make this possible, and in some cases improve efficiency and fluidity in our workplace as well and everyday lives. But I hope in the environment that we live in, I hope we can design a healthier transportation system and maybe improve the comfort and quality of spaces that we use every day in a more adaptable and resilient way. Because I think that's something that people have struggled to sort of adapt to, because it was just such a sudden and unprecedented time. But on a wider spectrum, I think we should all just sort of learn to work more collaboratively in between disciplines and learning from each other and having to incorporate that in our work, like how I did with architecture, theatre and art, or in so many other ways.
Yeah, I think a few people, Emmanuel said something similar about using some of the things that we've kind of been forced into, like because of lockdown, if you're a creative, you've kind of been forced to create online, and those things that maybe you didn't necessarily want to or hadn't imagined yourself doing, but now you've kind of you've learned and you've like expanded your practice, and as you say, there's space for collaboration and working with different things.
Definitely.
Far greater.
Definitely.
That's great. Thank you so much for talking to me, Anahita. And
thanks for having me.
We'll be releasing your the links so everyone can go and explore the world themselves.
I hope they all enjoy it.
Speak soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.